of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for that. If you can please silence your electronic devices as needed. If there's any students here that need paperwork signed off for a government class or anything of that nature, any of the board members can sign off your paperwork. My name is Timothy Crumley, the president of the board. That's who's running the meeting. I believe that's line 2. But at the end of the meeting, any board member can sign off your paperwork. So at the end of the meeting, feel free to come up and get your paperwork signed off. Motion to move the agenda to the table. Motion by Mr. Groden, seconded by Ms. Rivera. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered. Dr. Evans, any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
There are none at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Motion to adopt the agenda as is. Motion by Ms. Greco, seconded by Ms. Galligan. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered. Approval of draft minutes, May 9th, 2024. Motion by Ms. Greco, seconded by Ms. Galligan. Any discussion? Very well. All in favor? And Ms. Jersey recused from the vote. And that leads us to student board member update. Sophia.
Students were really excited about capital improvement project passing. Sense of pride in having buildings that look good. Student council, 7 students are meeting with district cell phone committee on June 3rd to express opinions on cell phone use in schools. Student advisory met with Dr. Furman last week. Dr. Furman has handled or is handling most all concerns quickly. Some have been more challenging, but we are working on things like school-wide honor roll recognition, safety concerns, and food, etc. Performing arts. Since our last report out last month, we had several performances. On April 26th and the 27th, we hosted the 2024 NISPA Soul Festival, which included over 1,500 students, as well as participated in the festival performing different solos. On May 3rd, a group of students and chamber singers, emerging ensembles, and music history classes attended a performance of opera Carmen at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York City. The high school spring concerts were on May 6th and the 7th and were well attended. Screenagers film will be shown on May 23rd with classroom activity to follow for all topic habits that are determinable to students' success, vaping, screen time, etc. Lesson on bias occurred in all social studies classes this week. This was to address some of the hateful words and symbols found in our school. Girls golf sectionals this week. One of our girls, Abby Morse, qualified for day 2 today. State qualifiers this week for many of our track and field athletes. Varsity sports awards are at 5:30 on Wednesday, June 5th. Senior prom was Friday at Carberry, and senior class trip is the 29th and 30th to Ocean City, Maryland. Honor Society inductions were last night, and the National Honor Society for Dance has their ceremony Thursday with their showcase performance on Friday. Tuesday, June 4th is Algebra 1 Regents, and all other exams are scheduled June 14th through the 25th. Both Caitlin and I would like to express appreciation for the Board of Ed as they've been patient and kind with our scheduling issues due to life circumstances. It's appreciated, and we have honored to serve the student body here at their meeting to the Department of Education. Ms. Hurley cannot make it tonight due to prior engagement, but she wanted me to express her thankfulness and kindness in cooperation with working with us this year. Thank you.
Board member? I don't have any questions, but We as a board recognize what you and Caitlin have done for us this year by providing information and insight into the student body. And we as a board wanted to show our appreciation with a small token that you can take on with you, and we hope you appreciate it. So we got you this. We also have one for Caitlin. If you would like to bring it to her, we can get it to Miss Hurley. But we very much so appreciate all the work that you guys did for us. She tried to like back out of this whole thing at the very end. I did deny her request for a resignation. So I also have a small token for her as well, and we really truly appreciate it. Courtney's gonna make you get up and take a picture.
One, two, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on from our student board member update, we do have a presentation this evening on instructional coaching. So I'll pass off to Dr. Evans, who will quickly pass off to Mrs. Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Crumley, and good evening, everyone. So towards the end of the last school year, we identified some areas that we felt we needed to improve upon. And primarily the core functions of organizations and the core functions of schools are around culture and climate, and also student learning and instruction. And we really saw a nexus of that, or at least a resource internally that could address both of those issues with our coaches. And we looked around for someone who could come in and work with our coaches to improve all of those areas, particularly starting at the elementary level, with the idea of ultimately improving student outcomes, but also the culture and climates of our elementary schools and seeing what might possibly be transferred up through the secondary schools as well. And we ultimately see areas for growth and ultimately becoming a professional learning community, or what's commonly referred to as a PLC, where there is frequent and regular reviews and discussions around instructional practices, around student performance, student outcomes, and ways to support teachers and paraprofessionals in their work. And I'm pleased tonight to recognize Barb Phillips, Aaron Lake, and Ryan Spear, who I don't know if everybody's talking tonight, but our coaches are here for being here to present. But before that, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Carlin to introduce them and to fill in anything that I left out. Ms. Carlin.
You did a wonderful job. So pretty much everything that Dr. Evans just mentioned, I think really we were lucky this year to be able to spend some time with the coaches to really hone in on that tier 1 instruction and why it's important that if we have really strong tier 1 instructional practices, our tier 2 and our tier 3 needs should go down significantly. So that's really our focus this year. We've had a wonderful instructional coaching staff for several years, but we really have had the opportunity to kind of pinpoint and hone in and really strengthen their skills so that they are a resource for our teachers. So we're very excited. You as a board have approved Red Cardinal Consulting, and you have asked some questions about what is that work. So Barb Phillips is here tonight. She is the one who's been working with our coaches among other things this year, and will continue some of that work next year. So I'd like to welcome some of our coaching staff that were able to be here tonight. Thank you for coming, and Barb Phillips is
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to start, but we are going to hear from all three of us, if that's okay. So thank you for the lovely introduction. I don't have to say much more than that, I don't think. Again, my name is Barbara Phillips. I am the owner of Red Cardinal Consulting. I also work with a company called Solution Tree, which, as Dr. Evans mentioned, that is the company that really is the nationwide company that leads the work in professional learning communities. So I'll be working with the district thanks to all of you and your support. Not only this year did I get to work and have that great privilege, but also in the years to come, like next year. So I'm thrilled to be here tonight. Took the quick drive from Binghamton today, and I didn't see any rain, even though there was rain, I heard. So I was lucky, I stayed dry. So I'm understanding we have somebody to do our advancing of slides. Is that true? All right, awesome. So Just a little bit of background, just so you know where I come from. So this is my 25th year in education. I started off as a 3rd grade educator, elementary educator in Vestal, New York, and then from there ended up becoming a middle school principal in the Deposit School District, so not too far from here. And that's where I really got to meet Teresa in the beginning. And then from there, I worked at Broome Tagabosi's, working with our 15 component school districts in Broome County before finalizing my public school career, working in the Windsor Central School District. I was their Director of Learning and Continuous Improvement for 7 years. And now I get to do this great work all over the country, and I'm so thankful for that. And so my passion is instructional coaching. I will tell you, I'm finishing up a dissertation right now on that, and on what it takes to actually have that successful within a school district, to have that program and that model. And so thank you again for having us tonight. I am so excited about, if you want to advance one more, the team you see on the screen here. So I don't know where to stand, like my back is not to you intentionally. Okay. So what I will say to you is that the team you see here, first of all, if you just look, so Ryan is here and Aaron, they're going to talk more about themselves in a bit. But take a look at the years of experience. So we are talking, when we're talking about, as Dr. Evans mentioned a few minutes ago, when we're talking about change makers, which is what coaches really are, we have an incredible team here with lots of experience. And so I have had the great privilege of working with them all year long. We've met multiple times. And what I also want you to know is the slide deck that you see before you tonight is not something that I created. Like I helped build it, but it was done collaboratively with the team you see here. So please know that. And I'm just so proud of the work they've created, and what's happening in terms of our system moving forward. And so this is one of our favorite slides. And so you heard it was mentioned by Dr. Evans, the idea that really as change agents, which is what we think of with coaches, we're really thinking about the role of each of those people you saw on the screen a moment ago. How do they really impact culture of a school and impact the instructional practices happening within it? And so what we know is that in order for teachers to really take on coaching, that can be hard, right? Because now we're looking in the mirror at our own practices and saying, is this really making sense? And is it something that I want to be vulnerable enough to get input from somebody else who's an outsider? And so this team has worked really hard to build relationships. They continue to do that. And so what I'm proud about is that they are really starting to dig into that culture and showing that it's okay to others, that it's okay to have that like vulnerability, that it's okay that we are actually like coming in and visiting and giving feedback only to make us better than we already are. And so if you would just click again, if you're thinking about culture and climate in the school, this is my favorite visual for that. And so we wanted to share it tonight because it's really been something we've talked a lot about in our work this year. And so if you look at the top of that tree, climate is how the school feels. And so like when I enter any of your buildings, I will tell you I'm always greeted. Usually it's by a security officer who knows my name, has my badge ready, right? It feels good. I go in the school, the kids are happy, the teachers are saying hello. That's climate of a school. Like when a school feels great, like that's our climate, how it feels. Not only, it's not even as important for visitors as much as it is for the kids that are in the school every day and the teachers that are there as well. And so culture, as you can see, is almost like the roots of the tree underground. That is way more complex. And so when we're talking about the culture of the school, changing the way we've done business, that is where that vulnerability really comes into play. And that can be really hard to change. And so what this team that I've been working with, that you're going to hear from in just a moment, some of them, they've been wonderful about saying, you know what, Barb, we've done this way before in our coaching, and it really hasn't taken off. Like teachers haven't maybe bought in, or they're not feeling like vulnerable enough yet to have this feedback. And so that's really helpful context because we can approach things in new ways. And you're going to see one of the ways tonight that they approached the teachers and the staff to say, it's okay for us to come in your rooms and give you feedback and celebrate you as teachers. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin Lake. As you saw on the slide, I've been here for 20 years. I've taught 3rd grade, kindergarten, 1st grade, and this is my 2nd year as an instructional coach. And working, I'm going to start off by saying that working with Barb has been amazing. It's one of probably the best experiences we've had with PD and with training. And I know I speak for all the coaches when I say it has been an amazing experience, and we're really grateful that we're getting this now. So one of the ways we started off with this coaching is these praise walks. As you see, there's a few photos. So what a praise walk is we collaboratively as coaches got together and had discussions, went into classrooms, teachers who volunteered, they opened up, they were vulnerable, and we went in there to celebrate their successes, to praise all of the amazing things that we were seeing. In the first round, it was just the coaches, and we went to classrooms in all 3 buildings. And then the second round and third round were just the coaches for that particular building, and the teachers who were in the first round joined us in each following round. So then they got to experience things that they saw in classrooms and get to bring that back to home. So once we went in, we'd observe for about 10 minutes. We'd come out, we'd brainstorm the great things that we saw. We'd create a poster. And we'd go back and share that with the class, and the teachers and the kids were super excited to hear all of the great things. And that's just the way we started this year to build up that climate and culture to celebrate the greatness, because we can all learn great things. And then when teachers went into the next round, we had conversations with them, like, what did you see? What can you bring back to your classroom? So it was a really great experience. And as you can see, we got into lots of classrooms this year. To kind of build up that vulnerability, and we can all have something to learn from each other, whether you're teaching 2 years or 20 years. We want to build a culture where everybody's vulnerable and willing to learn new things. Want me to take that one? Okay. All right, a little change in the program. So what you can see here is actually something we're going to be looking at more and more as we are working on being a professional learning community. And so it's the whole idea of tiered support for students. And so we know that students enter at different places, they need different supports in order to be successful. And it's really our goal to make sure that all kids are learning at high levels, right? So if you look at this, if you think of tier 1, this is really where the coach's work is going to come into major play. So you can see even on the side, it says prevention, and that's intentional, that's there, because what we know is that if our teachers, if we're all instructing in ways that we know are research-based and we know that are like highly effective practices in the classroom, then what we know is that we're actually being preventative. And we can prevent some of the other tiers, which are where students need more support. We can actually eliminate that because students are learning at high levels in that first tier. Does that mean all students are going to learn at high levels in tier 1? No, not necessarily. And we always will have tier 2 and tier 3. But what we find with this work is that if we really, really coach up tier 1 and make sure that like we're using the best practices we can to teach students, then we find that those other tiers do need like less and less students need less and less support there because they've reached high levels with that great instruction from tier 1. Okay.
So good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Spear. I'm the instructional coach housed at KOR. 23 years in the district, 5 years as an instructional coach. I started my career in the middle school teaching 6th grade, and then the last about 13 years the elementary school teaching 4th and 5th grade. What we're sharing on the slide, if you mind if I take yours, all of you have this. This has been our biggest accomplishment of the year so far, in addition to what Aaron explained as far as the praise walks, is the coaches have developed this instructional playbook. What we did was we took a look at that pyramid, upside down pyramid that Barb just shared with you, and talked about what are the things that we can do to coach our staff at the tier 1 level, so that we then build a culture where we have less tier 3 need. We've identified we have a lot of tier 3 students. If we really tackle tier 1, then hopefully we won't need as many tier 3 services. So we created what we're calling the instructional playbook. Because we're elementary teachers, it looks very elementary with a panther's paw. But we identified 5 essential areas that every lesson needs to have. And it does not matter whether you are a reading teacher or a math teacher or an art teacher or a PE teacher. It doesn't matter what you teach. Every lesson that you deliver to students in our district should encompass all 5 of these areas. We identified the most important area as lesson focus, which is why it's the palm of the paw here. That does not mean, though, simply putting an objective on the board. Putting the objective on the board is not focus of the lesson. Really, really developing a lesson that has a clear purpose and a clear direction. So when anybody goes into the room, especially a child goes into the room, they know what is going on. What are we learning? What am I going to be able to do today? And it goes way beyond just today's students will be able to. That's teacher talk, right? So we have to make sure that all of our lessons are focused. From there, once you have, and this gives our collective definition. So the five of us got together, we collectively came up with what does that mean? So our goal, I'm jumping around with, but our goal is that these will be posted now in every elementary classroom starting in September. As we begin to roll out instructional coaching for the district, this will become the district instructional playbook. So every lesson, K or pre-K through 12 in our district will meet these 5 criteria. And we can work with administrators who will do the evaluations to say, when you go in and evaluate, do you see those 5 areas in the lesson, right? And our job is to make sure that our teachers are doing a good job there, so that when they do get observed, that they are getting good marks on their APR. So from the lesson focus, we then said the other 4 essential pieces of a good lesson are student engagement, differentiation, effective questioning, and check for understanding. And again, we've defined what you're finding as each one of those terms on this page here. Do you have any questions about our instructional playbook yet?
I do.
Okay, good.
So it is not in pre-K?
It is not in pre-K. Right now, our coaching model is only in our 3 elementary schools. We originally started with just a literacy coach in each building. So there was 1 literacy coach in each building. I was the first math coach in the district 5 years ago, but I was an elementary math coach. I was shared amongst all 3 elementary schools, working with K through 6 or K through 5 teachers, which is very overwhelming. And then you decided that it was important to create a second math coach. That's where Aaron came in. Then when we separated Rutherford and Cook back to K2, 3, 5, I went to Rutherford and Aaron stayed in Cook. That's kind of the background in coaching. So some of our literacy coaches have been, Jill has been a literacy coach for I think 10 years. But our role is changing, which I can show in another slide. So although we have some coaches who have been coaching for upwards of 10 years and some as few as 2, this next slide really shows how we envision our roles changing as we move forward with our training and bar. So on the left is a bulleted list of goals, but now that I see it and I look at my notes, it really shouldn't be a bulleted list. It almost should be a circle like the circle on the right, because if we do all those things on the left, then they all kind of meld into each other. So for one of our goals is staff retention. And I'm sure it's a concern of the board that last year we had upwards of 10% of our staff leave, right? So that's a major concern. I'm the mentor coordinator for the district. So that's a major concern that I run a program where 10% of its people end up leaving. Right? But beyond that, right? I coordinate. So our feeling is that if we embed good coaching at the elementary level, and then which then moves up beyond there, that eventually that will lead to staff retention. That's all the things that Barb explained in that tree, right? If the culture starts to change, then the climate will change. And if the climate changes, then people will want to stay, right? Increase collaboration and morale. Well, if you increase the collaboration, if teachers feel that they can collaborate with another and be vulnerable and not judged and not evaluated as such. If I raise my hand and say, I don't know how to do this, I need help with this, I have a lesson that I'm not strong in, they're not ridiculed for that, or administration doesn't look down on that teacher for doing so. By doing so, that will increase morale. If you increase morale, tension goes up. And as Barb explained, if we do a good job and we kind of tackle our tier 1 strategies, research-based tier 1 strategies, then that will limit the need for as many tier 3 students and tier 3 services. Again, if our students are performing well, then the teachers are happy and the culture is good. We are offering a ongoing and non-evaluative support, and I think that's the biggest difference that what really needs to get across of what coaching is. We are peers. We are not administrators. We are MTA members. We are certified classroom teachers. We are not administrators, nor does anything we do get back to administration. Now, years ago, that was not the case. That's how we're changing the wheel on the right. Years ago, it was, this teacher has a problem, you're the coach, go in and help her, right? And that's what we would do. Her scores are not very good. Her kids are not performing well on such and such exam. So now you go in and help her get her scores up, and we'll plan and we'll co-teach and all that. But that was really kind of the focus. And of course, that leaves a bad taste in teachers' mouths where, oh, the coach is here, that means I must not be doing a good job, right? So we want to change that approach to and we're not evaluative. So we don't report back to administration now. What we can report back to is trends. So when we're coaching and I'm working with 7 different teachers and I see that those 7 teachers have similar needs, then I can relay that to administration, who they can then relay it to curriculum and instruction to provide PD. You see the difference? We're not saying she's a bad teacher. We're just saying that collectively this group could really use some help in differentiation. Well, then it's Teresa's job to find PD that offers differentiation.
I feel that way.
This is just the first year. Give us a we are starting through those phrase walks. We have started to do some of this coaching, this different. So let's talk about the wheel. Good question. So the wheel demonstrates the different styles of coaching, different models of coaching. The outside wheel is a relationship-driven coaching model. So the coach is all those things on the outside ring. It provides support. It is a trusted, almost like a friend or a support, or I need this, can you get it for me? Especially math coaches or a new program, right? When SCAT came in, our literacy coaches had to become the experts in SCAT to then help classroom teachers when, so they became like program gurus. Like, I have a problem with the program, I don't understand. Can you come in and help me? That's kind of the outside ring. We are moving though into that second ring, and we kind of are already there, which is the teacher-centered coaching. So that would be things like helping the teachers to design quality instruction and being more of a mentor as opposed to a friend, and it kind of offering that valuable feedback as opposed to just providing resources. From there, we're going to move into, through time, is that darker blue, which is going to be student-centered coaching, which will then lead to increase in student. That is our goal there. And that's the last bullet on our set of goals, is that all of this work will ultimately lead to, yes, it's nice to keep teachers and all that, but the ultimate goal is to increase student achievement. Thank you.
A little bit, we're almost done, I promise. So the next 2 slides, I'm not going to try, it's on an iPad, but you can't see it. So, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because I know you have a busy evening. But the coaching team spent some time, I believe it was it Eric or Sue? One of the coaches said, I feel like we need a timeline of how we're going to roll this out in a way that makes sense, which I love that idea. And so that's what they did. We put the years up and we really went through and said, so we started almost with the end in mind and said, so let's look at like 3 years from now. What do we really want to see? And words like, we want to be a district of choice where people notice us. They're like saying, this is the place I want my children to come to school because the education's great, the teachers are great. And so then we kind of worked our way backwards just to say, so how do we get there? And so again, I can't say enough how proud I am of them, like in terms of what they've done and the work they've done. And so what we did this year is spend a lot of time going in classrooms together, watching videos together, practicing our language for coaching, because that's very important, how we talk to teachers, so that it's not, like Ryan said, evaluative. We have specific language. Ryan, he's teasing me that his language has changed with everybody he speaks to now.
It's getting there.
In a good way. And so you can see though, as the years go on, they actually titled each year, and that was their idea too, was like saying, we're initiating, we've had coaching for a long time, but really we're starting to initiate that culture of coaching. We're starting to really have a deep understanding of what this means. And as time goes on, you can see, if you flip one more slide, okay, you can see like in 26, 27, really celebrating that culture of coaching and collaboration, like Aaron and Ryan spoke about, so that teachers are actually able to share with one another. What we know is that if you go back to that tree, which we're not going to, what we know is a cultural change usually takes 3 to 5 years. And so that's why you see the timeline that you see ahead of you, in front of you. It's not that things aren't going to change next year. Of course they are. Next year, the coaching team's goal is to really, as you can see on that first timeline slide, is to really spend a lot of time with any teacher who is willing to be coached, but also especially focusing on those first year teachers, newer teachers. And I will tell you, this summer, we're actually going to be using the playbook at new staff orientation. So really setting that foundation early on, so that teachers have that foundation that they can go into their classrooms and have those components embedded with support. Okay. And so with that, thank you again for your time. We're going to open it up for questions. And so we'll open it up, but again, thank you for your support. It's been really, really exciting. I get to see this work many places, but I will tell you, they don't know this, but I've been like kind of showing people their playbook, like this is what it could look like, because they have done that awesome of a job. So they get all the credit. And so what questions do you have for us? Go ahead. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for the coaching work.
Thank you.
Is this on? Does it
Thank you. Yeah.
Questions that I thought of as this was being talked about is when you talk about the praise walks, are teachers told, say, hey, this week there's going to be a pop-in for 10 minutes? I'm just curious as to how that's presented before you go into a classroom and just.
When we initiated it, it was volunteers only. So that first round was like, is anybody willing? We're starting this new thing called Praise Walks. We explained what it was and we looked for volunteers, and we had a number of volunteers that first round. And then for the next round, we asked that group of teachers, like, hey, maybe you could find some friends who would be willing to let us in. So it was not forced upon anybody in any of the rounds. It was all voluntary.
And nor was it a surprise.
Right.
So they knew we were coming. But I will tell you, those posters that we made are still hung in most of those classrooms. It seemed, I don't like hokey things. And when Barb showed us the video of a previous school that did it, you run up to the class on the playground and you say, look at what, I thought it was very hokey. You put glitter on it and all these like buzzwords all over the place. I thought it was incredibly hokey, but once we did it and I saw how it impacted the teachers and the kids, and to see those posters still hung when we did these in November and they're still hung on the wall, it really is an impactful way to experience, to get ourselves in there. And then from there, we talked about the collaboration. We have taken, so the teachers who go to see other teachers, that really never happens. So you really, during the course of the day, you don't get up and go to your colleague's room while they're teaching and watch them, right? But there's been so many great things that we've seen, the teachers have seen in other classrooms that they've now implemented in their own. Like, oh my God, that's a great idea. I'm going to steal this. And next thing you know, they take this idea and they run with it. So that's really been the most beneficial part of it. It's really sharing ideas and just doing your job and people watching you and getting great ideas from it.
And the kids loved it as much as the adults. Like we would go to one classroom and then hours later, we're in a different classroom and you'd hear the kids from the first one in the hallway, like talking to me, oh, they were in your classroom. They said we did this amazing. And they were proud. So that was really nice. And that made the teachers feel good that their students loved that experience.
And I'll tell you, behind the scenes work, you come back to the classroom with those posters and you're talking to the students, right? Like, boys and girls, we came today, we saw all these great things. We saw great questioning. So you're talking to the kids, but you're making sure that the teacher picks up on some of those buzzwords as well, right? Great questioning, great routines, right? Great culture, and you all get along very well. Well, that's a lot of work. The teacher put all those things in place. He put those great routines in place. When we say that, we're giving kudos to the teachers as well. Because we don't want to go in and say, your teacher did all these great things. We say as a class, we saw all these wonderful things.
I want to say that it's very encouraging to hear 2 veteran teachers from here really genuinely excited, and you can tell, and it's just going to boost morale in itself, and just that you're able to breathe some fresh life into the teaching for others. So I just really appreciate that. I only have one other question, and it had to do with you're setting this all up. Are there like a book that you're using, like a manual to go through guidelines as to how you implement something like this and put it together?
So honestly, it's kind of a collaboration of all different research and like, so it's called strength-based coaching. We take strengths of the teachers and then work to take that and then think, how can we make that piece even stronger and add a little bit more? So we've been using, as you can see, we even in the presentation, we had a few different visuals from different researchers. I had the great fortune to be trained by like Jim Knight, and I've had time to work with him actually, and Paul Bambrick Santoyo and some others. So it's actually, you know, based on what we're doing, and I know Ryan, actually that wheel, like that was actually not even from my work. Ryan, we were all working together and he was like, wait, we went to a training, right?
Yeah.
And
That was from a previous training.
yeah, so there's not a manual by any means, but we do have like, we've worked to create, which is actually beautiful. We didn't put it in. They've created a conversation protocol too. So they plan out the conversation before they have the coaching conversation so that teachers also have is predictability. They're not like surprised, right? So we could actually share that. It's beautiful. They did a great job with that as well.
And to go off on that, so that it's just a one-page document, kind of gives us sentence starters. So when we go in, we have something, because there's a nice buffer between you and a teacher. If there's a piece of paper, it's a nice buffer to have. But when we're done, we leave, and we leave that and all of our notes to really prove that this is not a value. We take nothing back with us. Any notes, handwritten notes we took, plus our discussion, plus our next steps, we leave it on the desk and we say, thank you for your time, and we leave empty-handed.
And this year has been spent not only the praise walks, but Barb training us how to do that well. So we've been practicing with teachers in classrooms with Barb to do that for teachers. So next year we'll really streamline where we're doing all of that work on our own. So that's why I said the training's been great, because it's slow and steady and we want to get really good at it, not just like, hey, here you go, sink or swim. So it's been a great experience for that reason.
And I think our objective too is to move this up throughout the district, right? So it's not just an elementary program. Every single teacher can benefit from having instructional coaching. So we're trying to figure out ways to do that so every teacher feels supported. And these guys have really great ideas on ways that we can do that.
No, that was my question. My question was actually if this is something that's going to be implemented also maybe in the middle school and high school level as opposed to just being maintained in the elementary, or if the concept is if you change the culture and climate of the elementary, it'll carry its way up through. So I think you answered that. So concept is we're going to try to implement this also into the middle school and high school.
And work with all administration so that when they go into classrooms, even evaluatively, they're seeing and having some of that same language so that teachers are more comfortable with that feedback as well.
So, it sounds like a really great program. So like we as a board get a lot, like we have the introduction, you guys come in, it sounds wonderful. Is there any way like maybe into next year, we could have them come back or we could get some sort of feedback to say, this is really working in our school and wow, like all that excitement just to get some sort of feedback that what we're doing is good and we want to maybe continue to push this or support it or do whatever we need to do because, hey, this is working, or we tweaked it and now we're doing this, but this is a great thing. Is there any way to get that kind of down the road next year maybe, or?
We would love to come back, right?
And that was one of the things I said, like, we've got to keep giving updates because it's not this, we're throwing something at you and good luck, right? That constant movement is what we need so that people feel that support.
Because I think the community right now is concerned about like climate and culture, right? And this is really trying to fix that. So I think it's important not only that we know, but another presentation so the community knows what we're doing to try to fix that within our schools.
So I can expand on what the question and our goal amongst ourselves is that next year when we start using this coaching model and coaching teachers, that if we do a good job with this and it's truly non-evaluative and all the things that we said it is, that then Victoria will then say, I was coached and it was a wonderful experience and I recommend, Todd, that you do it, right? So when they ask for people or then raise your hand and say, come to me next. And that's our goal, is that it kind of trickles through the school. So it's not just next year it's going to be focused on our new staff, but what we want is we want a 24-year teacher to say, come on in. And they say, it's actually a really good thing. So that will trickle in. So we hope to bring you back some maybe anecdotal notes from teachers that participated and said, I was coached and here's what I got out of it. That's our internal goal to bring that back.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And I can just add one little thing. So I do this work in many schools, and I will tell you that usually what we find is that after like Ryan just described, like usually we call it teacher initiated, like they're asking us now to be coached, right? Versus us kind of begging to come in a room. And so what we find is that that number continues to grow, teacher initiated, like for years to come. I will tell you, I was actually, when I was in my previous district, the praise walks and this coaching work started because we had a building where we had a coaching team. And that building was not taking like any advantage of the coaching. Obviously, there was a culture issue, right? And so what we found though is over time, they ended up being the most coached building in the district because trust was built that like it was okay to be vulnerable. So we would love to come back though, absolutely, and give you an update. Thank you.
Todd, you have something?
Yeah, what I really love is, you're planting seeds. And it is, once you get them young, then that culture, they're gonna have that, they'll know it next year, they'll take it into the next class, et cetera, et cetera. I think that this is awesome because you give them pause to reflect. And
It should be a minute.
what it's doing is, it's really awesome because you're also striking a partnership with the administration. You know, we want those teachers to have those focused lessons. And you have that beautiful recipe that the administrator wants to walk in with, but at least you're giving them a commonality. And there's that same, I really believe that the empowerment is amazing. You got to feel amazing. We see it in you. We can hear it. You can't fake that. When people get their success and when you come in with their walk, it's great because people usually will discount anything you say because you say, oh, you did all this, but. And as soon as you say, but, they throw it right out, you know, but the power of and is really cool because you say you did all this right, and there's this sweet stuff, and then they're way more receptive to receive. And it's also what they're gonna remember harder. You know, everybody can remember somebody who dissed them 20 years ago and to the T, what they said. But this, to concretize it and then put it and display it, but then for you to see that it's valued, you weren't just doing some hokey thing, they had it. So that is really awesome. And it focuses that we have great teachers in Marcel. Thank you for showcasing.
Coached, I don't know. We haven't kept track this year because we're still learning.
Training.
Yeah.
The praise walks, we did 13 classrooms at KLR, 13 at Clark, and I think there were 9 at Chase.
Okay.
For the praise walks, the coaching, we're just being trained on how to do it. Yeah,
We
but
have been in a
yeah.
lot of classes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've participated in the coaching. None of us have really coached solo yet. So we've gone into a teacher, we've asked for volunteers. Barb kind of leads the discussion. We go back to our office and we brainstorm what we're gonna say when we go back, but Barb has kind of led that. But from the initial visit, we have had follow-up visits. So we have gone into a classroom, we've given a coaching point, we call them coaching points, like something to work on for next time. And then we follow up in like 2 weeks. And we've done that. So we've done the follow-up piece, but not the initial.
The initial, we're being coached on how to coach.
Okay.
And we haven't really kept data on how.
And in addition, our administrators annually have to receive training, it's called inter-rater reliability training, to make sure that we're all evaluating teachers the same. So Barb is going to give that training this year so that, again, we're staying consistent with the message and what we're looking for throughout the year.
I like guys, they can all know.
It's amazing how many people put those in a binder. Like, when, you know, where I've seen coaches where they said, oh, you coached me 3 years ago. I still have it though. It's right here. It's like, really? So like, yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
So moving on, Mrs. Greco.
Like the motion that we take the consent agenda items F1 to M2 as a group.
A second by Mr. Rivera. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered.
I'd like the motion that we approve consent agenda items F1 to M2.
Second by Mr. Groden. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered. Thank you very much, Ms. Greco. Moving on from there, we have information reports and discussions, board roundtable. Ellen?
I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to all the voters for coming out and voting yes to our budget and our bond. There's been so many things going on at night, I just can't keep track of, so.
Thank you, Ms. Jersey. Ms. Rivera?
Same message, thank you, and I did attend the Chase Spring Choral event. It was phenomenal. Hearing all those little voices. So thanks to Chase School administration, staff, students, security. It was a beautiful event. And also just to recognize community members, specifically some parents who spent countless hours creating the beautiful and amazing costumes that all the students wore. It was just a phenomenal event. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Mrs. Riley?
I just want to say, I wish I could have attended the concert at Chase. My husband went, but I was unable to go because I couldn't get off of work. Anyway, I want to just also say that Chase School had a cool event where they did something called Stream Fair. And what's interesting about that, besides the name, it goes from STEM to STEAM and now Stream. And I was thinking, I don't know what the R is for. Maybe reading, maybe you could help me. Is it reading? Okay, that was my first guess. But I just saw pictures from families of people that I know that have kids there, and I wish too I could have attended that. Unfortunately, it's been a busy week, but I do get out to Little League games, and so I appreciate all of the efforts. Community, I appreciate the efforts of the school where my kid goes to, where I'm a liaison of, and I also want to note that there was National Honor Society induction, and also the middle school junior honor society inductions today, correct?
Yep.
And I just want to congratulate the students that achieved there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Riley. Mrs. LaRusso?
Hi, I attended last night the National Honor Society. I believe you had 53 students inducted. The only concern I did have is when I used the ladies' room, the sink was very messy. And I'm just hoping when we have events that staff can go and clean the bathrooms prior to having families come in. What else I did? I've been to a lot. I don't even know anymore. I do want to say the trap, June 12th. I'm not sure if I read their email. They invited us out. I know the senator's gonna be there on June 12th. I think that's it. I just want to thank the voters as well and echo what Helen said. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I went to prom. I dropped my son off at prom.
Congratulations.
And it looks absolutely beautiful. The staff, they did such a wonderful job. It was just so nice to see that. And the security was great as always, which always makes me happy. And the students looked amazing. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. LaRusso. Mr. Groden?
I'm so happy about this bond. You guys did it. You back there watching on YouTube. Congratulations to our athletic director for having such an amazing video to tell everybody exactly what we need. And in his words, what an amazing time to be a Panther. And thank you to our superintendent for going out there. It was great pressing palms. The one thing that I really loved was how many we have for a National Honor Society that were crossed over, and they were 53 that they got their accolades. But I'd also like to see that somehow we get our air conditioning to work better.
Yes.
because I heard there was a terrarium in there. And I know I spoke with somebody who has it on his phone and said it was set at 69 degrees, but I have a whole lot of calls today that said it wasn't, so can't wait to work on that. But I'm looking so forward to turf, 8 lanes, 1,000 people seating. We are going to be the place in the county. We are putting ourselves on the map. And congratulations to everybody on the board that worked towards that and sold it, and I am so freaking happy. Go Mines.
Thank you, Mr. Groden. Mrs. Galligan.
That's very hard to follow, Mr. Gordon.
I try.
So,
Sometimes I get it.
I didn't get to attend Chase, but I have a full video of the production if anybody's interested. The Pooh costumes from the Matilda, I it was just over the top. And I don't know, like you said, whoever spent the time to put those outfits together for the children should be applauded and thanked. I mean, it was an amazing production. I also want to, recognize all our honor students, as well as the students who were inducted, which I did attend the National Honor Society induction last night. I will tell you that I had very difficulties also breathing in the auditorium. Air was very heavy, but we will work to rectify that somehow. And then I attended a track meet, so I am very excited for going to them away, that we're going to have a facility that other schools have. And I do want to also thank the voters for coming out and supporting the bond and our budget. And that's really about it for me tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Galligan. Ms. Greco.
No report.
It has been relatively busy. Yesterday I did sit in on a few interviews for our clerk position that is opening up, unfortunately, due to a retirement. On Thursday, we'll talk about this, I guess, a capital improvement, but we do have a capital improvement committee on Thursday, so hopefully we'll get that moving forward for our construction manager position coming up. There's just been a whole lot. Softball's over now, though, so I haven't gone to a lot of games. But I would like to, Ms. Rivera is officially on our board until June 31st. This might be her last meeting due to her personal constraints with her personal life. And I would like to thank you very much for your 6 years of service. 5 or 6?
3.
3. But thank you so much for coming on the board and doing all that you've done to help the school community, to keep everything moving forward, and it's greatly appreciated. I would also like to congratulate the new blood that's in the room. Megan Stalter won Miss Rivera's seat last night, and I would like to thank you so much for bringing it. As I alluded to, we've had Janet Leibold's been our district clerk now for 2 or 3? 2 years. She's been a phenomenal addition to the board. Everything is run incredibly smooth with her at the helm. I greatly appreciate you being there. So, the board, as a token of our appreciation, got the biggest hanging basket we could find. For your car window. Yeah, you're hanging on the mirror. Are you gonna make a steak picture? Carol, you want to? You have to go over there?
No. Hide behind the flowers.
I'm frozen food. Want to hang it over your head?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's put it on the floor. And thank you very much, Janet, for all you've done for us. I'll help you get it to the car.
Thank you.
Rearview mirror. I believe that was that. So thank you, everybody, for all that you do and your time dedicated to the district. It's appreciated. Moving on to director reports. Questions, comments, concerns regarding director reports. Victoria? What?
How'd you know?
Read the face.
Yeah. I would like to say, once again, love the pictures and all the reports. I definitely love the picture of Dr. Evans throwing out the pitch. Did you see that?
Little league pitch?
Yeah, little league picture in there. Finally we got one.
Well, that one person.
I love the,
Sorry.
it was a good job.
That's a comment.
The flags when you pull up on the front, they're long.
Banners, yes.
Banners, I keep calling them flags.
Whatever.
They're gorgeous. They're beautiful. I do have a few questions. So from school violence prevention program, the first paragraph is about students participating. How are these students picked that go and do these things?
It depends on which program you're talking about. A lot of it is guidance counselor recommendation, teacher recommendation, administrator recommendation. So some of the programs are for all students, so it depends on which program.
Synagogue, Broadway, Monticello, how were students picked for that? Because I mean, I think that would be something that the whole entire district could benefit from.
Yeah, that's a combination with MBK as well. So I'm not sure they're partnering together.
So I don't know exactly, but for that event, I believe Blandfield Synagogue invited Dr. Anil Alston, who is an associate commissioner from state ed. And he is the state ed department leader of the My Brother's Keeper program. So there may have been him reaching out to the local school district to have My Brother's Keeper students at that event. We can follow up to find more information, but I think that's the nexus of it.
Yeah, I would like to have more information on that. Have students would pick that if possible. And then also, Big Killian's director's report, it said here, we're looking at ways to align with the upcoming New York State advancement expectations, which ask schools to increase the numbers of diversity and rigorous courses. What does that exactly mean? I mean, are we setting children up for failure? Like if they don't qualify to be in these courses, the kids in these courses that don't qualify to be in these courses, like what does that mean?
I don't think it's setting any kid up for failure. I think they're looking to have, representative courses where, honors courses, AP classes, college level classes, reflect the larger student body.
Do we not have that right now?
No.
Why?
Well, that's the question that needs to be answered, and that's the question we're digging into. So that's part of her work. That's part of administration's work to enhance those numbers. Participation numbers.
That goes back to culture. As we just talked about what is the culture and what has been happening in the past. We're trying to dig into that to see why and to be able to offer more opportunities for all kids, not just based on one or two little things that we're looking at or teacher recommendation or student choice, but all of it. And so we're being very careful that when we choose students to be in a program, that they do have the capability and that we're encouraging them to show us that capability.
And then on the last page, it says other, which is great. I think it's wonderful that they started tutoring programs, and it says that for the tutoring program, Mondays to Thursdays, 2:30, 4:30, all are welcome. So I don't remember seeing that anywhere. I went back in Parent Square because now I have it, so it goes directly to my phone. So I went back, it was on the website on 4/17, listed on the website. It was not on Facebook and it wasn't on Parent Square. So I didn't know about that. And then yesterday I was in an IEP meeting and I asked about Regents Prep. And I was told about the MBK offering a tutoring program solely for prep for Regents. Phenomenal. Was on the website 5/10, no Facebook, no Parent Square. How come things aren't being, if these things are being offered and all students can benefit from them, how come we're not receiving that Parent Square? Because I checked tonight before the meeting and I checked Facebook before the meeting and nothing's being funneled out to parents. So my kids are definitely going to this. And I think more parents need to know about these programs that are being offered. Do we know why it's not going out in Parent Square?
I don't have an answer to that. Sometimes it's up to the principal to put that information out. I know Takima has been working with Courtney to try and get more stuff out. So I think that's a work in progress right now, recognizing you're right. We have to put more out there. It's just trying to decide whose responsibility it is to do that and to get everybody moving in that direction.
It's ultimately, it's ultimately up to the the program staff member to inform either the PR liaison in their respective school, the administrator of their respective school, or Ms. Bonfante to say, hey, we want to put this out there.
Okay. And then going back to, Lyle, I think he's a grant writer, right? Who's the grant writer for our district?
He's the grant manager of the School Violence Prevention Program grant. So the district had a consultant write that grant several years ago.
I'm just curious, if with these grants that are out there, we can't find a grant to help pay for morning care or aftercare for our children?
Currently, no. We've had one that we're coming off of right now from the state, but they're restructuring it to go through more of a need-based program through the Office of Children and Family Services. So that's something we've partnered. I know Dr. Evans spoke with some of our legislators last year to try and get us to find some more of those grants, and that's the direction we're going in right now from the state and the county is through Office of Family Services.
We only pay, I can't remember the name of it, because I remember you said that there's a grant writer that will write things, and then if we qualify, what was the name of that, Caesar?
Well, the grant writer that we use is if there's a grant out there that we bring to them, they'll do the work behind it. Or they might see a grant that we qualify for and they will get in touch with us, but it's kind of that partner back and forth.
And there's no grants out there for morning or PM?
Not that we have found, and we have been looking. As, like I said, as have our legislators as well.
I think that's, yeah.
Ashley?
I'd like to ask about, when Sophia was talking about the bias assembly or week that happened this past week to talk about bias.
Well,
Oh, it's tomorrow. It hasn't happened yet. Oh, okay. I misunderstood. I was just asking what that would be about. So I suppose you can speak to that, what it's about, because I recall the last meeting we had, we were talking about maybe getting a speaker or something. And so I
I
just
have
kind of,
something in my report.
oh, okay. So thank you. I'll get to follow up with Vicky's question about when she was talking about the bullet point number 3 on counseling departments, looking at ways to align with the coming New York State advancement expectation. Jess schools to increase the numbers and diversity in rigorous courses, which is awesome. We all want that. Concerns would be when you said, Ms. Carlin, about the student choice and teacher recommendation. Also within that is the academic achievement scores, because what I'm finding in my own experience, and I'm not going to say specifically school or whatnot, but I am a teacher and I worked several handful of schools, and I do see where parents or students want to be in certain classes and they're put in classes and then over time they're moved to a different class. And I just want to be, and I believe I understand what Ms. Lurusso is trying to speak to this. And I think as educators, we know that the pitfalls of the criteria would be, oh, the students that they really want it, they think they can do it.
Right.
However, there it may be an 80 grade, and maybe if they go into the honors class or whatnot because they want to, after a month or so, they might not see that that's the best fit for them. So I just wanted to be, I wanted to understand what that bullet point is saying, because I've seen where that's trying to happen, where you're putting kids into where they say they want to go or the parents want them to go, or guardians, but then it ends up where it becomes a debacle.
And we're trying to be really strategic about that. So like, for example, if a student really wants to try an honors class and if everybody agrees that they have the capability to do that, encouraging them, checking on them, and not just putting them in there and saying, good luck, but making sure we check in with them, and then also giving them an opportunity if they feel overwhelmed or it's not the right fit, scheduling a class that's not an honors class at the same time, so it's an easy transition. So looking at those kinds of things, because we want every student to achieve as high as they possibly can and give them those opportunities to try.
Sure, thank you. Great response, thank you. The other thing is when we talked last meeting about the My Brother's Keeper assembly. And we wanted to make sure that it was open to all students. How was that conveyed to all? How was that conveyed?
Again, it's depending on the program, right? So we have assemblies that are open to all students that might be sponsored by the MBK program or in coordination with an MBK program. So all students are invited to that. Things like the tutoring, it's open, even though it's sponsored by MBK, paid for through that grant, any student can go to it. So again, it's that communication to let parents know when the tutoring is happening and that it is happening. That allows them to have their student go.
Sure, but my understanding was that there wasn't as much clarity to know who could be part of the My Brother's Keeper program. So was that laid out explicitly?
So I'll be clear,
Sure.
any school program, any student can join.
Right.
Any extracurricular club, any curricular club, any sport, any student is eligible to participate in. Now, are there certain eligibility requirements for any extracurricular activity? Absolutely. But generally speaking, every program is open to every student. Now, in terms of, I think the My Brother's Keeper tutorial you referenced, you heard Ms. LaRusso talk about it being on the website. That did say in there, this is open for any student, sponsored by the MBK program, but this is open at the Regents Prep, this is open to any student. So as those things come up, that's how it's being conveyed.
Okay, so as it's going, it's not to make it a clear statement.
But we don't do that for the Interact Club. Right?
No, just because there was, my understanding was at the last assembly, there was some clarity issues as to who could be part of the club itself, not who could go to the club's activities, but who could actually be in the club. So my understanding was that that was going to be made clear and explicit. And
so we talked to individuals who had a misunderstanding around that. And we also talked to other people who attended the program, and they had a different take on how it was explained to the audience.
Sorry.
And I want to be clear for the record, I just used the Interact Club as an example. It could have been any extracurricular club.
Also, it says meetings, about the ninth graders. Their concerns and support currently being provided to support the creation support plans. What's being done to support the ninth graders? What is this plan?
So whose report are you looking at?
Ms. Kranz.
I think we're just really looking at any deficits that between the students saying, this is what I wish I had had coming into ninth grade, so that we can start doing some more work as we transition into high school, listening to what students are saying they were lacking or they were glad they had, so we can take that feedback for future years, so we can start strengthening our program as we come to ninth grade.
Is the guidance department being restructured?
Well, we're moving one guidance counselor to the elementary, so we will now have 2 full-time guidance counselors for K-5. Currently, we only have 1, and the need is greater than just the 1.
So the department's gonna stay the same, like if you have a child, it's gonna have the same guidance counselor once they hit ninth grade through 12th grade, that's not being restructured?
So the restructuring is they start with a guidance counselor in ninth grade, and that guidance counselor follows them through 12th grade.
And so none of that stuff's changing. Okay. Thank you for the clarity.
Any other questions regarding director reports? Thank you so much. Moving on to correspondence outcomes. None listed at this time. Policy committee memo, Dr. Evans.
Thank you, President Crumpley. So tonight, the Board of Ed will be doing a few first reads on policies that the policy committee had moved forward from its last meeting. I believe there are 1, 2, 3 policies and plus one regulation. Well, 2 policies and 2 regulations. That'll be for first reads tonight, and then there are 2 different second readings. And all of these come to us by way of the New York State School Boards Association. However, the free and reduced price food services policy, we did review that and align it with our current practices. And a reminder, the policy committee will be meeting at the second meeting in June, not the first, because the first meeting in June will be recognizing retirees.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Any questions for Dr. Evans? Capital project update.
Thank you, President Crumley. So as was mentioned earlier, the voters have spoken and 73% of our voters voted yes. I notified our architects last night. They were very pleased with it. And as was mentioned earlier, the capital project committee will be meeting tomorrow evening at 6:15 in the district office to discuss construction management RFPs.
Isn't the auditorium air conditioning our rooftop units getting changed out this summer on the energy performance contract?
I not 100% on the EPC, but yes, they are. Are they? Yes, they are on the EPC. So
That'd be great.
at this
Do we
point,
have, but do we, my thing is, okay, understand it being swapped out. Do we have the adequate tonnage of AC handlers on the said roof?
I believe so, but we'll look at it.
That's the train, who are we talking to?
I'll start with Steve Lewis.
Any questions regarding?
Didn't you present during the budget, wasn't it part of the budget? You came and presented, it said one unit is down right now. So we only have one unit working, and then he was buying parts to get the other one working, so we're at half tonnage, was my takeaway from that conversation. Yeah.
And I imagine it would end up being trained because that's all the other equipment on that building, and once you start,
Mechanicals, yep.
Yeah, we're keeping with it.
you can't really, it's harder to interface different units. Wendy?
My memory, what the timetable would be and some of the variables moving forward with the bond, so that the community is aware of how things might shape up for their children as moving forward for the field usage and other stuff, or how.
Now that the bond has been approved by the voters, our architects need to submit plans to New York State. The kicker there is New York State, their approval process is now out to 26 weeks. 26 to 28 weeks for them to approve the project. I believe the architects have stated that if everything went incredibly smooth, our best bet would be the summer of 25 to be able to start the field. That would not probably include the grandstand and or the field house. That summer work would then occur. I believe they would try to weasel in a little bit in the Cook and Rutherford or not, depending on how everything floats out. And this summer is the Chase School on the $54 million bond. Those elementary classrooms are going to get the rehab that will occur in the Cook School and Rutherford School on the bond that passed last night, because that's phase 4 of the $54 million bond.
Including the drainage at KLR.
Yes.
Including, and the parking lot on the side of the 100-200 wing that abuts the tennis courts. And that drainage going out to the ghost parking spot.
That's the best we can do right now. There's a lot that has to happen.
That's great, thank you.
So for this one, truly the best bet would be a shovel on the ground the summer of 25.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding capital project? Moving on to upcoming events listed in your agenda. Take note of the give back days, 24th and 28th. Community events listed in your agenda. The article in the Democrat on the valedictorians was very nice. Janet, questions and comments from the public?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much, Janet.
They've spoken.
Superintendent update and information, Dr. Evans.
Thank you, President Crumley. So as was mentioned earlier, we had a board member election, budget vote, and capital project referendum yesterday, or the annual meeting of the Board of Education. And I want to start by, again, reiterating the gratitude to our community and our voters for their support of the budget, the capital project, and voting, re-electing 2 board members, Mr. Groden and President Crumley, as well as Ms. Stalter. Welcome aboard, Ms. Stalter. And thank you again, gentlemen, for signing back up for another 3 years of volunteer work. Also a special thank you to Janet Leibel, to Courtney Bonfante, to Lisa Fela, to Steve Lewis, to Mr. Jasper, and to all of our administrators and staff members who helped to develop and promote, I don't say promote, but develop and provide information on the budget vote and everything else with that process. So thank you for your work. And Leibel, thank you. Good luck. An update, and this relates to the question that Ms. Riley raised. The No Place for Hate Committee met last week in the high school. That is being chaired by Ms. Lefberg, the assistant principal in the high school, and they are working with the Anti-Defamation League to organize activities. And in consultation with them, they decided to rather do more small kind of, I don't call them micro meetings, but classroom grade level meetings rather than a whole school assembly. Both the students and the ADL felt that that would be more impactful than just having a school-wide assembly regarding tolerance, bias, and anti-Semitism. So there will be more to come on that, and we will be having continued meetings on the No Place for Hate Committee. And any interested community member, student, or parent can contact Ms. Lefberg at the high school to sign up for that. Both houses of the New York State Legislature, the Senate and the Assembly, have unanimously approved new legislation to possibly overhaul the annual professional performance review procedures for teachers and principals across New York State. In essence, if it's approved by the governor, it would give a lot more local control back to school districts, boards of education, and respective employee unions to negotiate new APPR plans. Some of the more significant changes would be that student performance measures would no longer be required components for teacher and principal evaluations. Probationary teachers and principals would no longer be required to have a specific number of effective ratings or better to receive tenure, though both of those could be locally negotiated if that's what boards and associations wanted. And other things like tenured teachers and principals would not be required to be evaluated annually, but again, that would be subject to local negotiations. There are no changes required yet. However, changes would be required by 2032 if nothing were negotiated in the meantime. However, they could happen as early as next year, but we're waiting for, first and foremost, the governor would need to act on it. Then state ed would put out guidance, and then negotiations might occur between local associations and boards of ed. Also, but not on my report, however, I did upload today a proposed changes to commissioners' regulations on participation in interscholastic athletics. There's a lot of information here. However, the area that's, well, I guess in general, what the state education department is proposing to the regents is to eliminate some requirements for student participation in interscholastic athletics, namely the elimination of, I'll call them maturity tests for students who are in, let's say, 7th or 8th grade who want to participate in a junior varsity or a varsity sport. Also, the elimination of gender requirements for particular interscholastic athletics. In other words, if there were no comparable sport, so let's use volleyball as an example because that's a good one, that any student athlete could try out for that team, and that it would be on the school or the team or the athletics department to put out what are the requirements for students to make the volleyball team. and they would have to have tryouts that would be based on that criteria. Gender could not be one of them. So in other words, using volleyball as an example, unless there were gendered sports, unless you had a girls volleyball team and a boys volleyball team, any high school student could try out and be part of that volleyball team if they demonstrated the appropriate physical attributes. So think of it like trying out. That is the proposal that the state education department has put before the Board of Regents. It has drawn a fair share of controversy, certainly within the field. My colleagues and I are first and foremost submitting letters to the Board of Regents expressing questions and perhaps some concerns. But there's also lobbying groups or advocacy groups that are also raising questions about these proposed changes. They are not all necessarily, I'll say, bad, nor are they all necessarily satisfying either, and they raise some questions about how these things might happen. So there's different ways of approaching it, of looking at it, and right now it is merely at the proposal level. I would ask that if you have questions on it, that you review them first. And then, we can certainly talk about them at a later meeting relative to what's going on. Okay.
I have a question right now.
Yes.
So it's in the proposal stage, does not mean that a male can join the volleyball team in the fall for Monticello.
As it stands right now, no. Right. So
And
these are regulations that are being proposed to the commissioner.
But at this point in time, we got male sports, we got female sports, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
So that's the way it currently exists. Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to see on here if they give a timeline on when they're going to act on it. I think they were. Is it anticipated the proposed amendment will be presented for permanent adoption in September of 24? If adopted at the September meeting, the proposed amendment will become effective on September 25th, 2020. So probably not for the fall seasons, but possibly for the winter seasons.
That's nothing that we have the option to adopt or not adopt. That's passed. It's something that.
If it's passed as commissioner's regulations, then we have no choice in it. But this is kind of the comment. This is the period now when it's open for comment. Okay, I haven't seen much from NISBA yet about positions they might be taking, but I'm expecting something in the near future.
So you're gonna do a comment yourself?
Yeah,
As a board, what can we do?
You could, I would say right now, wait and see what NISBA puts out. I will share with you the advocacy letter that was recommended to us by the New York State Physical Educators and Athletic Association. And I'll CC you on what that is, but it's basically raising questions about how this would work. Recognizing some of it being legitimate questions. However, raising other questions about what it might mean at the local, for interscholastic athletics.
Now, what can parents do? Where can parents go to advocate or whatever?
I would
Legislature.
Well, they could go to the legislature because the assembly technically appoints regents. Okay, so that's the function of the state assembly. They appoint the Board of Regents. They could also, I believe there's a comment email on here. If not, I can share that with the board. But if you go to, there isn't one in here, but I can find it and share it.
Thank you. That's something that we could do with parents on, or we're not allowed to put something like that out there in form.
That might be considered politicking, but certainly, there's advocacy letters that the board could author that I plan on offering as well. And then last but not least, we're in the midst of personnel search season. We do have a number of vacancies on our website. And as was mentioned earlier, we have a long weekend this weekend because of Give Back Day. So no school on Friday, Monday, or Tuesday. Any other questions? Yes.
Question, where are the official results from last night?
They are under item T1.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
All right, moving on to Assistant Superintendent for Business, Mrs. Vela.
President Carmen, this evening you have the budget status, revenue status, claims auditor, report, school lunch profit and loss, and the student activity quarterly reports all through the month of March 2024. I'm also asking the board to approve the cooperative bid we did with DCMO BOCES for trash removal. We only this bid for the Chase School because they're outside the village. The village does trash pickup for all our other buildings, and there's no cost increase from the current year or next year.
Any questions for Mrs. Vela? Go ahead.
Our next audit committee. We have to do an entrance conference, and it's gonna be the same night as the policy committee, but we're gonna do it in central office in the conference room. We're gonna send out.
Second meeting in June.
Second meeting in June, 5:30 to move them right along.
Any other questions for Lisa? All right. Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, there's nothing there, but you got anything?
I think this wonderful presentation said it all.
Fantastic. Moving on then to action items. Ms. Greco.
I'd like the motion that we approve action items T2 to T11 as a group.
So I have a second on that by Ms. Rivera. Any discussion?
I'd like to remove, T10 and T11 just to discuss it.
Okay, I see where would you like to amend your motion?
I'll amend the motion to request that talk about action items T2 to T9 as a group.
I have a second on that by Ms. Jersey. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered. Ms. Greco. So that's that. Next.
A motion that we approve of. We just put them together. I motion that we approve action items T2 to T9 as a group.
Seconded by Ms. Holmes. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered.
I'd like to bring up for discussion action items T10.
Do I have a second on that by Ms. Jersey? Any discussion?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, this is Astor Services. They are providing mental health services here during school hours and non-school hours, just to school age and preschool kids. Am I saying this right?
One second.
The health and welfare?
Yeah, it's health.
Health and Welfare Services.
T10.
T10, not Health and Welfare Services, Astor or not?
No.
These are with other school districts who have,
We're attending non-public.
but yeah. Their students are attending private schools in our district. Yeah.
So those are students out of district who are attending private school in our district that we need to provide healthcare monies.
Or no? Just want to be clear with this, because it says approval for contract for health and welfare. So this does not have to do with the mental health services after.
You're saying
No.
speech, learning disabilities, position.
No.
Okay, all right. My apologies, my mistake, sorry.
Any other discussion?
I want to discuss T1,
We're not there yet.
okay, sorry. Guys.
All in favor, T10. Motion carries.
I'd like the motion that we approve action item T11.
Seconded by Ms. Jersey. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered.
Like the motion that we bring up for discussion action item T1.
By roll call vote.
Oh, I brought up for discussion first. I'll do the roll call vote.
Seconded by Helen. Any discussion?
Other districts, I noticed that they had write-ins instead, like the number of write-ins, like Liberty, like said, this person had this many. I don't see that in here. Am I missing it?
No, you're not required to. And we had a lot of different write-ins.
I thought that law we were required to be transparent and report out everything that was on.
You're not required to have that in the certification of the election. You're required to keep a log of it, and those numbers are available if somebody wants to request them.
You're not required to make it public.
No, upon request, you're required to make it public. Yes, you're not required to publish it.
What other districts do that?
Liberty did it, well.
They didn't tell you how many, they said over a certain amount, they did not specifically tell you that this person had this many write-ins. They said those three people had over 400 votes, they did not tell you exactly the amount.
Walter did.
And the Liberty didn't.
Walsburg did because they had a write-in candidate who won.
That's what made it different.
So you had to certify.
Yeah, they had to certify that. They had to certify that that person
And
won.
no write-in candidates were even close.
Which is fine, but I just want to make sure that we're transparent. I don't want anyone to come back and say, well, why wasn't this there? Or why wasn't that there?
They can certainly foil that and we can provide that result. But you're not required to list them in here because they weren't candidates on the ballot. Because there was, I can, for the public's edification, for trustee one, Todd Groden's seat, Todd Groden had 532 votes. There were 35 write-in votes. For Tim Crumley's seat, Tim Crumley had 569 votes. There were 93 write-in votes. For Lincoln Rivera's seat, Megan Stalter had 578 votes. There were 15 write-in votes. Those write-in votes were for a number of different individuals.
Yeah, that's fine.
And that's where it gets, because if this person won, this fictitious person has won, and you run into that.
Now, also they mentioned that, on the parent portal and things like that, that there was an issue with the voting machines at Duggan and Forsberg. So those ballots, they were all like scans after? Like,
Yeah,
how
as soon as
that
they
work?
came, yeah. So in the machines, there's a secure kind of drop box
Okay.
for that very reason. Like if you're not able to scan them, that they can get secured in there. And so they were placed in there. As soon as the machines came back on, actually at Duggan when it happened, they ran those ballots through.
So they open the box where it's secure, they take them out,
The key, yeah.
the key, and they scan them.
Correct.
So it's extremely secure.
Yes.
We do like an audit type of thing where we look at the paper ballots and there's the two people that are helping with the voting and they both confirm that the number is right on the machine.
So the machine, they don't do a paper copy. They don't do a paper tally of the ballots. They run printouts of the machines, correct,
Right.
Janet?
Yes, yeah, the ballot is scanned by the machine.
Now, is there a reason why we don't confirm it by counting it, just time wise? Is that why? Because it's late at night?
Time wise, we're not required to, and they run the tapes, I think, twice, correct?
Yes,
Janet?
2 sets of tapes.
Tapes are the printouts of the scans.
So, is that just our policy as this board, or is that just the policy of New York State?
Policy of New York State, to my knowledge, with state election law relative to school board elections.
I think the only ones that are actually hand canvassed are the write-ins.
I'm just,
And absentees or
Absentees, sorry.
because my understanding was that the voting machines were down, whatnot. I know they're in a secure place. But because there's not thousands of them, there's hundreds of them. It seems like something that could be done to confirm that the machines are tallying correctly. So I would be in the vote if we were to do a hand count at some point in the future.
I would be on the team of saying, yeah, that's a good use of time and resources. Thank you.
Any other discussion regarding T1? So Janet,
By roll call vote,
wait. We have to make another motion, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I'd like to motion that we approve action item T1 by roll call vote.
Seconded by Mr. Groden. Any discussion? Janet?
Timothy Crumley,
Aye.
Wendy Galligan,
Aye.
Todd Groden.
Yes.
Jennifer Holmes,
Aye.
Helen Jersey,
Aye.
Victoria LaRusso.
Aye.
Adriana Mason Greco,
Aye.
Ashley Riley,
Aye.
Linka Rivera.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. Moving on, closing a meeting, correspondence. None listed at this time. Janet, any questions or comments from the public?
None.
Thank you so much. Motion to adjourn made by Mr. Oh, so sorry. So we have no more action items to discuss, but we do have to go back into executive session for reasons of personnel and contractual obligations. But there will be no other actionable items after that. I'll entertain a motion to go in executive session in a moment, but I'm assuming there's at least a few of you cats that need your stuff signed. Please come up now to get that done. Thank you, everybody else, for coming tonight. We appreciate it. I forgot about your. Oh, thank you, Ryan.
Well, we got to